Zimbabwe's independence, the currency that never was. April 18, 1980. A new nation is born. The Republic of Zimbabwe. Flags are raised. A Methodist minister named Canaan Banana becomes president. The Zimbabwean dollar replaces the Rhodesian dollar as official currency. And on that same day, the financial foundation for one of the worst currency collapses in modern history is quietly laid in place. But almost nobody saw it coming. Because the real story isn't about what happened on April 18th, it's about what nobody said out loud in the months leading up to it. Let's be precise about the timeline. Rhodesia, that's the colonial name, had been in open rebellion against Britain since 1965. For 14 years, a white minority government led by Ian Smith fought a brutal civil war against the black majority. By 1979, it was over. The Lancaster House Agreement forced Rhodesia's hand. Elections were held under universal suffrage for the first time. And on April 18, 1980, the country officially ceased to exist. Zimbabwe was born. Canaan Banana, a 58-year-old Methodist minister, was installed as ceremonial president. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a military strongman. He was a theologian and a peacemaker, exactly the kind of unifying figure a traumatized nation might choose. Behind him, Robert Mugabe, a former guerrilla commander, took the role of prime minister with executive power. The currency switch was practical. The Rhodesian dollar had become worthless internationally, a pariah currency backed by a pariah government. The new Zimbabwean dollar would restore legitimacy. It would signal a fresh start. It was, on paper, completely rational. But here's what historians almost never mention: the new government inherited a destroyed economy. 14 years of war had shattered infrastructure. Sanctions had crippled trade. The government held foreign currency reserves of roughly $400 million, not insignificant, but not enough for a country trying to rebuild from zero while feeding 7 million people. The decision-making in those first months was desperate and, in hindsight, naive. Mugabe believed that land redistribution could solve poverty overnight. He believed that printing currency could fund government spending. He believed that controlling prices could prevent inflation. These weren't random beliefs, they were the ideology of liberation movements across Africa in 1980. Zambia had tried it. Angola had tried it. Mozambique had tried it. But Mugabe had something none of them had: the landfall of a country with established agricultural wealth. Zimbabwe was food-rich. It had gold. It had minerals. The government's logic was sound: redistribute land from white farmers to black farmers, maintain food exports for foreign currency, and use that currency to fund development. The plan made sense. It was the execution that was poison. Within months, the new government faced a critical choice. The civil war had created hundreds of thousands of unemployed soldiers who needed payment. Infrastructure needed rebuilding. Schools and hospitals needed funding. But foreign currency was draining fast. So in late 1980, Mugabe's government made the decision: print more Zimbabwean dollars. Not excessively at first. Just enough to meet immediate needs. But once that decision was made, once the government crossed the line from sound currency management to monetising its own debt, there was no going back. But here's the detail that reframes everything: international observers and the World Bank had warned, explicitly, that Zimbabwe was heading for currency collapse. Reports from 1980 and 1981 detailed the foreign exchange problem. They spelled it out. The government ignored them. But not because they were reckless. Because they had no choice. The real unreported story is this: the conditions for Zimbabwe's eventual currency collapse were baked in from day one. Not by incompetence. By impossible mathematics. A newly independent nation, emerging from war, with destroyed infrastructure, controlling a valuable currency it couldn't afford to defend with actual wealth, facing unemployment, facing land redistribution demands, facing the expectation that independence would immediately improve living standards. Those aren't problems you solve with good monetary policy. Those are problems that print money until the currency dies. That's exactly what happened. By 1997, 17 years later, the Zimbabwean dollar had lost 99% of its value. The lesson isn't about Zimbabwe. It's about how easily we separate the symbol of independence from the reality of economics. A new flag, a new president, a new currency, these are stories we can tell. These are moments that feel like power. But they're not power. They're theater. Real power is having more foreign currency than you owe. Real power is having enough actual wealth, crops, minerals, goods, to back up the money you print. Zimbabwe had the symbols but not the substance. And the government chose to hide this gap behind printed money rather than admit it. Today, we see the same pattern in different countries. The symbols change. The fundamental problem remains, the gap between what a government promises and what it can actually deliver, filled with freshly printed currency. History doesn't always repeat. But the math always does. This video is for educational purposes only. Not financial advice.